Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and today we're going to replace the screen on the Samsung A21, also known as the Samsung A215. So the tools that we're going to need are going to be a PH000 bit, a plastic pick, a razor blade of some sort, a playing card, and some heat. You'll also need some clamps, as well as some glue. So the back is plastic, and generally you can actually remove it without adding any heat, but just in case we're going to add a little bit of heat. Then we're going to get a razor blade and kind of lift up a little bit on the back, and then we're going to get our plastic pick in there. If it's difficult, you can get a playing card in there, and then use your plastic pick to cut through the adhesive. It is possible to crack this back, even though it is plastic. So you don't want to be too reckless, but just cut through the adhesive around the edges, and make sure that the fingerprint stays on the phone rather than sticking on the back. And once you take this off, you can take off this adhesive, but we'll do that later. So all we're going to do is just remove all these screws that you can see. They should all be the same size, but just in case, try to keep them in order. And if you haven't removed the SIM card tray, make sure to do that first, because what we're going to do is put a pick under that little area, so then we can separate the back from the frame. Then I recommend going down the frame to unclip all the clips, go on the bottom, and then up to the left side, and then it should lift up kind of like this. Now once you got that off, you can unplug the battery right here, and then remove these 4 bottom screws right here. This little plastic piece should lift up, but you can kind of lift it up like this. There's a cable on this little plastic piece that we're going to lift up, so I recommend lifting up on the right side like this, just a little bit, and then this plastic piece should come out fairly easily. And just in case, we're going to unplug that antenna and move it down just a little bit, and then we're going to unplug the LCD display. And what I recommend is moving down that cable a little bit. Right now I unplugged it, but I'll plug it back in. Next, what you want to do is heat up the screen. I would recommend staying around the top. Just be careful around the front camera because you could melt that camera. So what I'm going to do is heat up the screen, and I'm going to get a razor blade to kind of lift up the screen so then we can get a pick in there to cut through the adhesive. For some reason, using the pick seems to cut through the adhesive a little bit better than I would expect, but a playing card is even better. So once we have a decent cap, we're going to get a playing card in there, and then we're going to be able to cut through even more adhesive. This should be pretty easy to take off the screen, but if your screen is cracked a lot like mine, what you're going to have to do is heat up the edges a little bit, and we're going to use this card to cut through the adhesive. Some areas you might have to use a razor blade to kind of lift up the glass so then the card can cut through the rest of that adhesive, but most of the time you can use heat and the card to kind of cut through it. Depending on how cracked it is, this may be a little bit difficult, but what you can do is wedge the top of the screen once you get a decent amount lifted up, and then you can apply some heat. That way the screen lifts up more once you do apply the heat. There is a chance you're going to break the LCD like I did in this video, so if you're trying to preserve it, I wouldn't recommend doing this. I would recommend being a little bit more careful, but this is mainly for people that aren't trying to preserve the LCD. Eventually it got to the point where using a pick was a little bit easier for me, so I switched to the pick from the playing card. And we're going to keep using heat and a razor blade to kind of lift up the screen, and then a pick to also help as well. And once you get to the bottom, the screen should kind of lift up like this, and it should be fairly easy to remove. And once the screen is removed, we're going to use that razor blade to remove all the glass. Be very careful because you don't want that razor blade to slip and cut you. This is a very tedious job, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that everything is flat and there's no glass when you put on the new screen. After you've done a thorough cleaning, removing all the rest of the adhesive as well as the glass that's on the phone, what we're going to do is grab the screen and we're going to feed it through this little hole, just a little bit, not all of it. And then we're going to grab the glue and we're going to apply it around the edges. This is the part where you would normally move over the earpiece, but I forgot to do that until the end of the video. So don't be like me and actually take it out, and I recommend setting it on the actual frame itself, not on the new screen. Once you apply the glue, it should just stay in place. But either way, what you want to do is apply the glue around the edges of the phone, except for where the earpiece is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lift up the phone like this, and we're going to feed the rest of that cable through. And to line everything up, you want to line up the top first, especially where the camera is. Then you want to plug in that cable. Then you want to line up the bottom area. And once everything looks good, we can grab the clamps, starting with the 4 corners, and we're going to apply a few clamps around the edges. I recommend maybe using 5 or 6 on each side, all depending on how strong your clamps are. Then I also recommend putting a clamp on the top and the bottom. What I recommend doing is letting this dry for at least 2 hours. If possible, letting it dry overnight is the perfect situation. Once the glue has set, you can remove the clamps, and then we can start putting the phone back together. So we're going to move that bottom cable back into place, put this little plastic piece right here, feed the cable through that appropriately, and then we're going to put these bottom 4 screws in. Next, we're going to plug in the battery and put back this plastic frame, and while we're at it, we might as well put the SIM card tray back in. Once you put that back on, we can start putting all the screws back in place. And then another tedious job is removing all the adhesive. I recommend just removing the trim around the edges, not so much around the right side of the cameras. Do that on the back as well as the frame of the phone, and eventually we're going to have a clean phone like this. Then we're going to grab some double-sided adhesive, put some on the left side, the bottom side, the right side, and the top side. Then all you got to do is slap on that back, push down, make sure everything is set properly, and then you're pretty much good. All you got to do is clean up the excess adhesive. Again, I forgot to put that earpiece in, but I was able to get it back in the phone. Hopefully this video helped you out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or on Twitter @MattofRDBR, and feel free to follow me on the social media listed above. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos like this, as well as some review videos. And hit that bell button so then YouTube reminds you when those videos do come out. Thanks for watching.